About 8 years ago, I was flying to London, and in the middle of the night, I turned on the audio and was listening to a children's program in which a woman was reviewing children's books. And she started to review this book about a pig that became world champion sheepdog. And she started to laugh during the review, and she laughed in such a way I thought, this must be very special. There's something which causes this lady to break up. So when I landed in London, I went to a bookstore and bought the book and stayed up all night reading it, and I just fell completely in love with the story. I mean, Dick King-Smith's book, I think, is somehow there's something really special about the story. I don't think there's any animal trainer in the world who's ever reached the heights that Karl has, quite in this way. I mean, he's a man obsessed by the process of making animals act, and yet what's so unique about him is his love of animals, even beyond human beings in a way. We also wanted to create a place which was as memorable as perhaps the house in Psycho or the house in Giant and so on. That when you so that when you thought of a farm, you might remember Hoggett's Farm as a sort of quintessential farm.
In 1991, December of 91, I got my first contact from Kennedy Miller, just inquiring if I had interest in their production and what have you. And they sent me a script, which was in a storyboard format. In other words, the whole story was cartooned out, frame by frame, what the director wanted to make. And I lied to them. I said, we could do this movie. It can be done. For the film, we trained on 970 animals. And we'll say in the case of Babe, there was 48 piglets to play the part of Babe. There was several female dogs and several male dogs playing the part of Rex and Fly. There was more than 24 ducks in training to play the part of Ferdy. So all the animals had different doubles, and for the puppies, we had something like 24 puppies to play the part of 6 puppies. What we did, we formulated the equivalent to a big obedience ring in a barn, and we cut that big training arena in pie-shaped quarters. And in this section, the horse was in training. Over here, the dogs were in training. Here, the chickens were in training, the duck, the pigs, and what have you. And so these animals saw each other in training and heard the distractive noises of the opponent animal trainers cueing their animals. And so they just learned to accept each other. I would work the pigs with a little cricket clicker. The sheep were worked with a little toot horn, party favor. The cats were worked with a bell, I think, and the ducks were worked with a buzzer. So now during the course of a scene, if the duck was doing right, we go buzz, buzz, and clickety-click for the pig and toot, toot for the sheep and all that sound. Sometimes it sounded like a kindergarten band. Sometimes we would lose a little control of the animals during the scene because they were working for us, but playing with the actors. So sometimes we'd have to beg an actor, please hold it down a little bit with the pig, I'm trying to cue him, you know. But no, the actors are just fantastic to work with.
In Australia, where it was filmed, George Miller is extremely highly regarded, and so is Chris Noonan. And Chris Noonan is possibly a saint, I think, not only in terms of patience, but in terms of generosity of spirit. And so there was a very good vibe the whole time we were working there, and it's quite sort of, I think it's probably a little more casual in Australia than it is in other places too. And it was a menagerie of animals and people and cranes and gaffers and and grips and all sorts of things. But it did have a very great feel about it, you know, partly because of the people who were working there, but also because it was a fabulous script.
And I was there 5 months, and I don't remember any time that I was on the set that anybody raised their voice. No yelling, no screaming, no antics. Chris was incredibly patient. That's the thing I noticed most. Everybody participated in making this film with the film that it is, and it's special.
You'd be trying to focus on what you were doing, and you'd either have an animal clambering around you, or that extremely distracting sound of honks and clicks and burrs and wheeze.
The setting is very much like a fairy tale. The interesting thing is when you stood on the hill, most sets you go to, you know, you only see it's only a front, or it's all done with the magic of the camera. But when you stood on the top of the hill and you looked down onto the set that we had, the barn was completely intact and the house was perfect. The proportion of the two was perfect. The green hills in the background didn't have to be painted. The color was perfect. The sky, the trees, the sheep in the field, it all looked very much like it does in the film. It looked like magic.
It's a fabulous script, and it's fabulously directed, and it's absolutely divine to look at. So it's hard to imagine something that can appeal to so many people on so many levels, and that it can actually, you know, have been, it sort of seems like not within the realms of possibility, but somehow they've managed to do it.
It's close to my own voice. This is, I do a lot of little boys' voices. He's younger. He's just more innocent. Maybe the sweeter side.
The first time you hear that voice in the film, one of my thrills was, I mean, I've known Chris a long time, but seeing the film and hearing when the first time Babe speaks, and I saw it like, and I went in like an afternoon, I went to a matinee with tons of kids screaming and yelling, and the first time she talks and just hearing all these little kids oohing and awing and, oh, Mom, she just melts you with that voice.
We flew together to Australia, and we went into a recording studio, and we did all of the voice recording, the script of all the voice work.
I like that rule, that's a good rule, but this is bigger than rules. This is life and death.
And we read it just like goes from scene to scene with all of the actors all together, and just redo the scenes, do them until we get them right. All 48 of the babes were just precious.
There was like a little babe cult there.
But they had, in the nursery, they had the small piglets that were very young, that were being bottle fed. And then there were older pigs that were going through their lessons, that were already in school.
There was a couple of craggy pigs in the corner that were just a little too old to play the part, going, I could have done that.
Pigs with behavior problems.
When I was younger, I could have played that.
Pigs with behavior
Bitter,
problems.
drinking pigs. It was ugly.